All right, good morning, everybody. We still have some people filtering in, so we are going to get started here in just a minute or two. Um, Today, we're going to be going over Copilot agents. So we'll just give it probably another 30 seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started today. All right. I think we've had enough filter in. As more filter in, we'll pause for questions today. So, good morning. Today we're going to be talking about Copilot agents, and this is going to be covering Copilot agents for in Copilot for Office 365. So before we get started, a quick show of hands. Is there anybody on the call that does not have Copilot or is not using Copilot in their organization? Just see a show of hands. A couple that are not. All right, you can go ahead and drop those down. Okay, we have a few. So I just want to make sure and kind of get a baseline here before we get started. So, of course, these agents that we will be covering today do require Copilot to be deployed to the organization. So Copilot agents really bring three main points when we're looking at how they impact our organization, right? So we're looking at enhancing productivity, improving accuracy and consistency in tasks, and providing personalized assistance tailored really to individual needs. So the enhanced productivity. So Copilot agents take on our more mundane and repetitive tasks, really allowing information workers to free up time to focus on being more creative or really more strategic. So by automating some of these routine activities like data entry, scheduling, or generating reports or analysis, these agents help us accomplish more in less time. We also look at things like improved accuracy. Human error is inevitable when we're looking at manual tasks and we're looking at multitasking. So Copilot agents are going to allow us a higher degree of accuracy and consistency. And this is really valuable when we are looking at data sets that require attention to detail like research, customer support, and project management and finance. And of course, then we have personalized assistance. And Copilot agents provide us with this personalized assistance, offering suggestions and solutions that are most relevant to our tasks. So this tailored approach allows us to enhance the overall user experience and making our work more intuitive and less cumbersome. So agents that are available out of the box, right, in Copilot chat. The simplest way to get started with these is that you can actually go enable these directly in Copilot. We're going to do a lot of live demos today, and we will use the PowerPoint deck as kind of a reference point and probably be switching back and forth here as we get into this. So there are some agents that Microsoft has provided already. There's a writing coach that allows us to get detailed feedback on our writing, helps us change the tone, translates text, and assists us in writing. We have an idea coach that really helps us with brainstorming and organizing our ideas. Microsoft also put out a prompt coach that allows us to create effective prompts for using Copilot in Office 365 across all of the stack. We have a career coach, and this provides career development suggestions, including role understanding, maybe a skill gap analysis, learning opportunities, and career movement plans through the organization. Microsoft also has the learning coach that is going to help us understand complex topics by breaking them down into simple, intermediate, and advanced summaries. And it also provides guided practice and learning plans. And then we have a visual creator that actually helps us creating images and videos. So these are all available. And as you start using those, you can also use these as a baseline to build out some of your own agents if you like some of the things you see here. So there are a couple of ways agents can be created in Copilot chat. And these are some different agents that I've put together before. an onboarding buddy to assist new hires in the onboarding process, a resume reviewer to evaluate resumes against job descriptions. Contract and legal review helps us review and analyze legal documents, maybe identify key clauses and assess compliance. I've created a research assistant, which helps us retrieve information from company databases, and then policy search. So this really looks up company policies, policy lookups, and allows me to answer questions on our company policies. So we have a couple of places we can start building out these agents as well. And I'm including this step by step. You can get a copy of the slide presentation after the presentation is finished today. But I also want to include the documentation step by step on how to do this across both SharePoint and Copilot. So this actually shows the 8 steps that are needed to create an agent inside of SharePoint. And it also shows how we can do that in Copilot chat. So these are more going to be reference slides, and we're going to do this live today. So as I mentioned, we have SharePoint agents and we have Copilot agents. The Copilot agents in SharePoint, they're very, very similar. It just allows us to create an agent directly from a SharePoint site within a document library. And I've grouped these into a few different categories, right? So we have customer service, sales, finance, marketing, HR, legal, and IT. And I put together some examples of how we can do this. And our agents are going to use documents that exist inside of document libraries. We can use up to 20 different knowledge sources to give our agents information. And when we have piles of information across our SharePoint estate, we can start creating agents so that we have self-service capabilities across our different departments. So customer service, we have a knowledge base. We can do an internal Q&A. Sales, if we have a product catalog or a set of product catalog documents that are out there, or proposal templates, we can actually create agents that are going to help us, find things in those product catalogs, help us build out proposals. Finance is going to help us analyze data and maybe provide some cost-saving recommendations, and it can actually look at years and years of data. So one thing, I know a lot of people on the call do have Copilot. Copilot does allow you to have conversations, right, with individual documents or a group of documents. Where the agents really come into play is I can drop an agent into a folder in SharePoint that maybe has 1,000 documents. And then I can start having conversations with 1,000 documents and start understanding the insights, trends, history, and things like that. So that's where these agents will really get powerful. And these are actually able to be created by anybody in the organization. So if I have a Copilot license, I can go to a SharePoint site that I have access to. I can create an agent that maybe is going to help me with my job, help my department, or for cross-departmental type scenarios. And these agents are going to respect the existing permissions that are in place. So we are not introducing a new information leakage threat, right? So the agent is only going to surface information that end users have access to. And of course, we have some different ways of governing those activities that we are going to cover in more details in our May webinar on these. So here's also the step-by-step for building out our SharePoint agents. So we're going to actually go ahead. I actually have a SharePoint site that is over here. This is actually a team site, and I have some different, I have a document library here, and I have all sorts of different scenarios. I have an onboarding scenario, IT log file analysis, and events, HR chatbot. These are all files right now that I would want to use, even an MRI analysis. These are all files, folders out here that have some information that I would want to surface through an agent. So one of these examples here, you can see I've already created an agent, but we're going to go ahead and create a new one here. And I do this just by clicking over on my tab here, and you can see right here, I have my create an agent. So I'm creating an agent in this directory right now, and you can see this one was already created. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit this one. And first, it's going to ask us for a name. And this agent, right now, this description is generic out of the box. This agent is curated based on the content from the selected file sources. So this really doesn't give a really good description for somebody coming in to use this agent if they don't understand what's in this folder. But that is the default out of the box. And if we go back and actually look at just a sample document that I dropped here, we have an employee benefits guide, we had an onboarding FAQ, and a welcome letter. So I'm just going to show that what we're actually looking at here. And this is just a very high level document that gives some bullet points to show that in a directory, we could have a couple of documents or hundreds of documents related to health insurance, our retirement plan, our PTO policy, and parental leave. So I've consolidated some information into one document, but we could have a folder here that had hundreds of documents that covered all of our policies here. So I'm going to go back into my onboarding agent. I'm going to give it a description that gives a little bit better information here. Oops, I actually started it back up. Sorry about that. Let me actually close out of here and go back into editing this. Sorry about that. Let me deselect that and go to create. This agent is used to provide new employees with onboarding. So here you can see that I can go ahead and save that. And it came up with some different default questions for me. So first I have the identity of this agent. We're going to change this as well to say onboarding agent. And then we're going to go into our sources. And here it is already looking at our onboarding folder. That's where I was when I went to create this agent. And I can also drop this agent on a SharePoint site and go ahead and publish this file over to another site, but I'm going to leave this here. I already have my document library selected. I selected a folder inside of that document library to target this agent just against my onboarding content. And then we go here over to our behavior. So welcome, enhance your productivity with this agent. This is default out of the box behavior. So when we do it, when I've done it through SharePoint here, it is not looking at really much of the content when it's creating these default fields. So I can say, welcome to new company. I can help you, oops, can't help me type. I can help you learn more about policies. And then we have some starter prompts. And you can see here it came out with 3 that really aren't relevant here. But I want to say, tell me about our 401k. How much PTO do I get? What do I have to complete when joining the new company? And then you give it some instructions. How should this agent interact with our users? So right now, this is saying provide accurate information about the content in the selected files and reply in a formal tone. So by default, this very short, succinct prompt is going to tell the agent to look at the files that are in this directory, only use the files that are in this directory, and provide responses based on this information. And again, we can clarify the tone, and I'm going to say a friendly tone. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then as we're working with this, you can see here that I have the ability to test this. And I can actually click through these starter prompts that I put out. And now it's going to go through and I can refine my instructions from this. And I can refine the way I want it to respond. But you can see here, it's pulling up this response already. And it's giving me information about our 401k plan, what our automatic enrollment and matching is. And it also says for detailed information, contact benefits@company.com. And I have that in one of my documents as our primary HR contact. So here that agent has been created here. So now, we'll go back over to my identity and close this out. So now we have this new onboarding agent, and now it is loading up and giving us this experience. And this is what an end user would see when they actually start interacting with this chatbot. So here we can use the seed questions, or of course it can operate with any questions the user comes up with, and it will only focus on the documents that are in this library. So this is one example. If you have any policies and procedures that are out there, it's a really easy way to create a chatbot to, without any IT support. You can do this yourself. I can do this as maybe the HR manager or the owner of the HR site. And anybody that has access to my HR site could use this chatbot in a self-service kind of scenario. So you can see here, it knows who I am based on my Active Directory attribute. It knows, hi, Corey. Based on the employee benefits guide, it's providing me a link over to the benefits guide as well. And it's giving me some information on PTO, how it's accrued, and how I request that. So this is an example of how we can do this in a SharePoint site. So I kind of want to pause here and just see if we have any questions on the SharePoint agent side. Let's take a look. So here was a question. Do the users using your agent need to have a Copilot M365 license as well? So you will start seeing notifications from Microsoft that these SharePoint agents are being offered without having to have a license for Copilot. Microsoft is allowing these to be used. You will get an allotment of messages. And a message is something like we just saw here. So I said, how much PTO do I get? And there was a response. So this entire conversation right now consumed one message. So there are a lot of emails going out with tens of thousands of monthly messages available at no cost, where I can create this agent because I have a Copilot license, and I can share this with individuals in my organization that do not have licenses, and they're able to use this. I don't know how long those free messages will be out there, but right now, Microsoft is offering that for you to try this out. Any other questions on SharePoint agents? All right. Then we're going to move on here. So again, here's the step-by-step for building out this agent in SharePoint. Go ahead and access agents up in the taskbar, edit your agent, add your content sources, define the behavior, test it like I did on the far right side, save it, and you can also share it, and then you can also add it over to Teams. So we're also going to be looking at creating agents in Teams today, so we can look at it that way as well. So as I mentioned, we have a few different agents that are available out of the box that you can also use. And we're going to just switch over to Teams now. And I'm actually going to stop the slide presentation here, so that it's a little bit easier for me to find everything. So here I've opened up Copilot in Office 365 and Teams. I popped it out into a separate window so that all of any other chats or anything don't interfere there. I just did that by clicking on the Copilot icon and choosing open a new window. So from here, you can see I have some agents already that are pinned. I have my visual creator, and I can actually also create my agents directly from here or get more agents. So if you go ahead and click Get Agents, this is where we're going to be able to get agents that are published over to our store. It looks like that's moving a little slow right now, so I'm not going to go ahead and wait on that. I'll open that and start that running in another window. But we can also go through and click Create an Agent, and this is actually going to launch a window that allows us to create a new agent. So what we are all going to create now is an HR assistant. And from here, you can see that I have some defaults. I have my customer insights assistant, an idea coach. It's giving me all these different templates that I can use as a baseline to start with what I want to do. There are some new ones that have been actually published since I last launched this. So we have a meeting coach, we have a prompt coach we've talked about, a quiz tutor, Scrum Assistant. So any of these, as you click on these, you'll be able to find out what that agent is doing, how it works, and go ahead and click configure and start changing that. But we're actually going to start from scratch. So I'm going to go back here, create a new agent. And first you can use the natural language to describe what you want the agent to do. And so you don't have to watch me type today. I actually have this over in Notepad. So I'm saying this AI bot provides employees with quick access to HR policies. And this is going to a different location and using different documents than the other agent we did in SharePoint. So you can see here, based on what I already provided, this does a really good job of coming up with default questions and understanding already before I've even defined the knowledge source. So now it's asking me, what do we want to name this? So we're going to call this HR Assistant Demo today. You can see here it's been renamed. All right, so you can continue the conversation and talk about specific actions or behaviors this agent should perform. And I have a bulleted list that I've already put together. And this list says, provide employees with quick access to documented policies, benefits, leave management, and workplace conduct guidelines, respond to queries, ensure responses are accurate and up to date, maintain a professional and helpful tone, avoid discussing topics outside of documented policies, benefits, leave management, and workplace conduct guidelines. So I'm giving it some guardrails here. I'm going to go ahead and click send. And now it is building out and it's auto-saved this. Now let's determine if there are any publicly accessible websites or data sources. This step is optional. And I already have a website that I'm going to use. It's an internal SharePoint document library. Now I'm just going to say no, I will configure that later. And then we're going to jump over into the configure tab after it's done with this response. So now it's all set up and with initial behavior and instructions. So if I go to configure, you can see here I can apply a template if I want to, and that template is going to have some predefined instructions. I can go ahead and change my icon from here. So it is something that aligns more with what we're trying to do. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Here's our user-facing title or name, a description that the users are going to see as well. The instructions are not published to the users. And we have thousands of characters that we can add here. We can give this up to 8,000 characters, a very explicit set of prompts that define exactly what we're doing. And then knowledge. This is really important. So we can browse over to any of our team sites, SharePoint sites that we have access to. You can see here I have 20 knowledge sources. I've already pulled out the link that I want to use. And it's auto-saving right now, and it's going out and it's cataloging that content right now. This was my use case number 4 for HR. I can turn on or off the ability to use web content. Since this is answering HR content, I don't want to enable web search for this. But if you click the eye, it will actually tell you what enabling that will do. So we can actually have this scour all public websites as well. So this is really useful. Maybe if I create an agent that's going to do an IT log file analysis, and I'm actually asking it questions, and I want to go out on the internet and find troubleshooting information or augment information, that's a way that we can actually use that as well. Switching mice, because that one just died. And then we also have the ability to turn on additional capabilities where we have a code interpreter. And again, this is going to give us the ability, this isn't relevant for our HR agent, but this could be helpful if we're creating something where we want to create visuals, solve math problems, analyze data, and then we have our image generator as well. So here you can see it came up with some starter prompts, and I can actually customize these as well to be more applicable for the environment that I'm in. So anything that I change here is going to show up on the right side of the screen. As I go through, you can see on the bottom right here, it says dress code. And I don't know if I have a policy on I don't believe I do. And then if we scroll down, you can see actions are coming soon. So right now, the agents that we're creating here are relying on Microsoft 365 Copilot licensing only. These are not taking actions where we're creating a chatbot, we're creating something that can interact with my content, but it can't take an action based on that content. It's called up Copilot Studio here on the back end, but if I want the full Copilot Studio experience, I have to go to Copilot Studio to create that agent that's going to have an action that can do something, that can read a data source trigger, that can create a piece of content, that can actually, interact with content more. These are pared down where we're really limited to interacting with the content. And you can see here I have this open and full version that's grayed out, and that's going to allow me to do things in Copilot Studio where we have more of an enterprise level agent or chatbot. So these agents are a really good way to get started with chatbots in the organization. And as you define and understand which ones are high value and starting to be used quite a bit, we can bring these over into Copilot Studio and maybe turn these more into a more enterprise kind of solution where we have some additional governance and reporting and other details behind that. So right now, before I've created my agent, I can go ahead and just click these tiles and see what it defines our current policies are, and just make sure it's actually reading our documents correctly and see if I want to update my instructions at all. So here are some policies. It's listing off a lot of policies right now because my question was very vague. So you can see here it's listing off a lot of different policies in the organization about compensation. You can see here, so I'm going to go ahead and click create because my agent is working. It's cataloged my documents. And it does tell you not to close this window. If you close window, it will not work. So you can see right now, this agent, when I've created this, I'm going to copy this over to my clipboard. Right now, it only works for me. So I can change this because of my permissions. I can share this with specific users, and I can do this by groups, users, emails, or anybody in the organization. Now, this is giving us a notification when I choose anybody in the organization. Not everybody in the organization might have access to the knowledge that I've used for this agent. So if I've done this and I've shared it with everybody in the organization, the agent isn't going to work for anybody that doesn't have access to the knowledge source that was used for this agent. So if I want to share this with everybody in the organization, I do need to use knowledge that is also available to everybody in the organization. So I'm going to leave this one only me, and that's already been saved. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and I'm going to go back to go to agent. So now you can see, where do we go? There we go. Here's the HR assistant demo. It shows up here on the right hand. It's at the top of my agent list. I can go ahead and pin it. It's always going to be up here with my installed agents. And this would be the end user experience here. This is exactly what my end users would see if I shared this with everybody. And from here, I can ask, tell me about our dress code. And I'm just showing that my phrase about dress code is different than what's up in the tile, but it does understand I'm asking about the dress code. It's giving me what our dress code is and talking about days where we have casual dress code, and it's giving me a reference over the file. And it's actually also giving me additional abilities to ask about this document itself. So I can actually, it's giving me information where I can actually have a conversation directly with that document. If it found, say, if we have a document library with lots of different documents that are out there and I want to drill down into something else in our policies doc, or I can use directly from here, again, ask a new question. So this is a way that, again, I can share out agents that anybody in my organization can use so that I'm creating self-service based on information I'm interacting with on a day-to-day basis. I know my information, I know where this is, and now I want to share this with other people in the organization so that maybe there's a self-service capability there. We can do that in a lot of different ways as well. Going to go back to some different scenarios here. I'm going to skip over these out-of-the-box ones that are available. The only one I'm going to touch on is this prompt coach. I've already gone ahead and installed this, and this is going to help us generate a prompt. And I'm going to give it, I want to write a prompt that helps me create PowerShell code to audit SharePoint site usage. So here it is going through and it's giving me some pointers on more information that it needs to give a good prompt. So it's asking me what my goal is. It's asking me about my context, the source, if we have any existing PowerShell scripts in-house that we wanted to consider, and expectations. How do you expect the PowerShell code to be formatted or structured? So it's saying once you answer these additional questions, I can put a great prompt together for you. So that's just one example of some of these agents that are already available for us. One other thing I do want to point out is if I want to go back and change an agent I've already created, I do this by going back to create agent. And here under my agent, you can see it shows last edited and view all agents. Now it's showing all the agents that I've created, and it allows me to go back and I can actually edit this from here. And I can go back and I can change what these tiles are. I could change my sharing from here if I want to give it to more specific users. And whatever changes I make here, after I click update, it will publish those changes and make those changes available. So we have our prompt coach. We have some out of the box ones. We're going to go back to our PowerPoint here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So some different ways I've put in here as well how you can do this. So contract review. So one way we can also use this is to do an analysis of contract language. And we're not going to build that out in detail today. However, the scenario is there. And I'm going to talk through this to show how you could do this in your environment. And let me see. IT events, contract review. So one way I found that is really easy to make this happen is to come up with a document that has your standard terms and conditions. So here is a set of standardized, this is a very, payment terms, 90 days. These are a list of the things that I decided I want to look at in my contracts. So you can see I have payment terms, termination clause, confidentiality, IP, liability, governing law, New York State, and just how it handles certain things here. So the easiest way to have this done is when I create an agent, it is not allowing me to upload a document and say, look at this document as part of this. So what I would do in that scenario is I would take some contracts that I want to compare to my standard terms and conditions and put them in the same directory. And then when I launch my agent, I can actually reference the contracts that are here by name. So if I have one that says Acme Company, I can say, okay, compare Acme Company to my standard contract terms and tell me what's different. And that scenario is built out here in the PowerPoint deck. So that is a really interesting way to get started with legal review by keeping your standardized contract terms in a folder. And then all of the contracts that you want to review, start adding them to that folder. And then you can start a conversation referencing the contracts by file name. It will understand the company name that's in that source contract. So there are ways, of course, to do that more eloquently in Copilot Studio, but from Copilot for Office 365, getting started with an agent, that's one really good way to get started here with contract review. And you can see I did create one previously where it's actually talks about ensuring compliance, but it actually gives you an example, and you can copy and paste this directly into what you're in your own environment, give it a name, Please be clear and concise. Refer primarily to the knowledge shared with you. If you don't know the answer, please refer users to the legal team. AI does a really good job of wanting to be helpful, and if you don't explicitly tell it not to be helpful, we don't want to make up information. So here is, also says, here is a SharePoint site with contracts and review instructions. And then based on those documents, it's going to be able to look at those here. I see another question about, from an admin perspective, is there a way to see all the agents that have been created in my organization? Yes, we can see those through the Power Platform Admin Center, and we will be going through governance in more detail in a May webinar on that. Another question here, if the person that creates the agent leaves the organization, does your organization lose access to that agent? Are you able to transfer ownership of agents? That is a great question. So as you can see on that, where my agent was created, we do have a couple of different ways of handling this. Let's go back to my SharePoint site. So this is actually, if I publish it over to SharePoint, this is actually a file. And if I actually download this file, you actually are able to assign ownership of this to somebody else by looking at that file. Let me see if I can get this to open. Let me just bring this to another monitor. This one is not opening for me, so I'm actually going to show you what an agent looks like from over here. Just a second, I'm going to go over to create an agent. So here you can see for my HR assistant, download a zip file. Inside the zip file, we have some different things here that are telling us what's going on. Gave my icon. I have some JSON, and this JSON is representing the default tiles that are out there. There's an application ID, a version for the latest one, description. Everything we had inside of there is in this JSON file. Then we have a manifest that's giving us other information. We have our outline, that's part of our icon. And then we have some additional metadata here that's pulling out, this is embedded in Copilot Studio, and it's publishing it over to an environment. So a couple of different ways we can handle this. If somebody does leave, I can bring it over into Copilot Studio and republish it, or I can pull that download. I can download that file and use that to create a new agent and take ownership of that. What I have seen happen is when we have agents where they're becoming mission critical, best practice is going to be to either make sure that we publish those as well as a SharePoint agent. So we have a file that we are managing on the front end so that we are not worried about just something sticking in my team's environment here, or we bring it over into Copilot Studio. So now there are, we can't just directly transfer the ownership of this agent to another individual. So the best practice would be opening it, editing it, downloading it, republishing it. If you want to keep it in the Copilot Office 365 agent, or else for mission critical agents, I do recommend we start bringing those over to Copilot Studio so that those are not tied to individuals and those are part of more of a enterprise, dev process and things that we already have in place. I hope that helped answer that question. Any other questions so far? Looking over at my other monitor here. I don't see anything yet. So here's another scenario, policy searcher. And this is to show policies of the company that you might have at your organization. And it's giving you the details that you need here and giving you some example questions. What's the company's policy on remote work? How many vacation days? We have the onboarding buddy that we talked about a little bit today. Here's an example and a screenshot on the right of how that would work. And also a research assistant. So can you help me find research documents related to specific topics? And this one's also, this one's helpful if you're trying to do research for a project or something else. This really helps go across the internet and find things on specific topics so that we are not binging through, the entire internet here. So some other ways of identifying SharePoint agents and target scenarios. So here is a workflow. Here's a use case scenario to illustrate how an agent can support your target audience. And this is just something to think about. So someone, say I'm in sales enablement. So as someone in sales enablement, I need to equip my sales team with tools, resources, and support. I want to help them sell. So I want to enable sales efficiency. So maybe I want to minimize the time that sales are looking for industry or sector specific product information. I want to reduce the time sales are recreating materials for client presentation. I want to do this using a SharePoint agent. And I'm going to create a sales excellence SharePoint agent grounded to our library of customer success stories, case studies, and proposals. And this is a metric for success. I'll know this is successful when I see positive trends and benchmarks on how sales are using our materials to help close business. So this is just a graphical representation of how to think through what you want these agents to do. Some of them, it's very easy to see. I work in a department. I'm getting a lot of questions on a policy document that I published, a year ago. So I want to put this out there and start referring people to an interactive agent that's going to handle those questions for me so I don't have that context switching or things like that throughout the day. I've also put some additional information here on other use cases for the different verticals that I represented earlier in our presentations. So we have one for customer service, sales, finance, marketing, HR, and we do have another question. Are any of the info folders shared with the agent is shared with Microsoft? All right, so anything that is done as far as these agents, everything stays within your tenant. So nothing is being shared with Microsoft by turning these agents on or using these agents. You're still not training a large language model. You are not training a public model or anything like that. Everything related to these documents or agents is being stored in the tenant, stored in your own semantic index, and is also honoring the permissions and governance controls you already have in place in the organization. And again, only the people authorized to view the content that was used for knowledge are going to be able to actually get anything done with an agent. So one thing, if somebody decided to create an agent, maybe it's our company's financial data, and I have all of my history for the last 10 years in Excel spreadsheets in a SharePoint folder. And somebody on my team accidentally shared that agent. They clicked share with everybody in the organization instead of just me or specific people. And somebody happened across that agent. They wouldn't be able to use it because they don't have the access to that source content. So even if they were able to start a conversation with the agent somehow or find that agent existed, because they don't have permission to the knowledge, the agent would not give them any information. So again, we do have those governance controls that are still in place to make sure the right people are getting access to the right information. I hope that answered that question there. So I am going to stop here and see if there are any additional questions. That is what I did have for today. We can go ahead and share this with everybody today. We do have some next steps available as well. Our Copilot Momentum and Agent Discovery Program, one of our technical architects can actually discuss your Copilot adoption and help you enabling agents in your organization, so you can reach out to us for those. We do offer our executive AI envisioning sessions that allows us to come to your office or visit online and help you define that full governance roadmap for your AI transformation. And then any of our topics or events we can actually bring to your organization as well. So awesome. I'm looking over here to make sure we don't have any other questions. Otherwise, thank you all for the time today. Wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. I know that we're ending about 14 minutes early, but there are a lot of good scenarios in here that you can actually start using in your organization right away. And thanks for your time today, everybody. I appreciate you.